I have no wish to rule, no taste for duty. I'm not suited.
You wouldn't dare.
I have dared, and I find it stimulating.
In both the show and the book, Aegon was crowned by a group of nobles known as the Greens, thereafter becoming King Aegon II. However, one of the questions that have lingered in the minds of the readers has been, did Aegon secretly welcome this transition into kingship, or was he reluctant to take on the role?
I don't want it.
There are actually several passages in Fire and Blood that insinuate that Aegon never wanted to be the king. And perhaps the most direct one comes from Septon Eustace, the Septon of the Sept in the Red Keep. According to Eustace, Aegon initially refused to take the crown out of loyalty and principle, stating, "My sister is the heir, not me." What sort of brother steals his sister's birthright? In this account, Aegon comes across as someone who was aware that his father had legally named Rhaenyra as his heir, and he was reluctant to usurp his sister's claim because he recognized that it was the wrong thing to do. These words make him seem like someone who is reluctant, but also someone who is honorable to an extent. I think that Aegon's reluctance is further substantiated by the fact that he was nowhere to be found on the day that he was supposed to be initially crowned. His mother had to literally send out a search party to find him because it said that Aegon was at his revels. This is not in line with the actions of a man who has ambition. If Aegon had been power hungry, he might have been plotting his rise along with the Green Council, attending meetings and readily available at the Red Keep when his father died. But instead, it is said that he was found drunk in flea butter.
Where is the White Worm?
She sold you for a price.
And why have you paid it?
It's also important to note that Aegon had to be persuaded to take the crown in Fire and Blood. He did not step into the role willingly. It was actually Sir Criston Cole who told him that if he didn't do it, then Rhaenyra would be forced to execute him, his wife, and his children, something that later on turned out to be true. Sir Criston Cole literally says to Aegon that whilst any true-born Targaryen yet lives, no strong can ever hope to sit the Iron Throne. So Rhaenyra has no choice but to take your heads if she wishes her bastards to rule after her. Now, Sir Criston Cole didn't say this line on the show, but it said that this concern for his life and the life of his children was the only thing that convinced Aegon to ultimately take the crown and become king. It was a concern for his family that led him to act and embrace the role of being king. House of the Dragon actually kept this element of Aegon's character, making him reluctant to take the throne, instead of being an ambitious tyrant. In Season 1, we see that Aegon was highly reluctant to take the crown, even going so far as to tell Aemond that he could find a ship and disappear across the narrow sea in order to avoid this responsibility.
Let me go. I will find a ship and sail away, never to be found.
He even voices his doubts about Alicent's insistence that Viserys changed his mind about making him heir, saying that his father never liked him and that he would never make that decision.
He could have, but he never did. Because he didn't like me.
This is all in line with the way that Aegon was described in Fire and Blood, because in the book, he lacked any burning desire to take the Iron Throne. It's Aegon's mother, Alicent, his grandfather, Otto Hightower, and Sir Criston Cole who conspire to crown him. But Aegon himself is reluctant and has to be dragged along to the event because he doesn't believe that the crown should be his. That's one way to interpret Aegon's character in Fire and Blood, as being a reluctant king who later on embraced his role. But there is another way of interpreting his character, as being an ambitious tyrant who embraced power. In Fire and Blood, once Aegon wore the crown, he quickly took actions to secure his claim and assert his authority. In fact, one of the first commands that he gives after he takes the throne is for Rhaenyra and Daemon to be seized and executed. He literally says, "My half-sister and my uncle are guilty of high treason. I want them attainted. I want them arrested. I want them dead." This sort of rhetoric indicates that Aegon was not reluctant to exercise his royal powers, and that he was no pawn either. He was ready to defend his power with blood, blatantly calling for the death of his half-sister as soon as he heard that she had been crowned on Dragonstone. This is a far cry from the boy who supposedly didn't want to usurp his half-sister's throne. Even when the Greens were trying to negotiate a peace deal with Rhaenyra, trying to end the conflict amicably, Aegon refused to make such terms and wanted to take stronger measures against her. He even accuses Grandmaster Orwyle of disloyalty and treason when he insisted that the best way to approach the matter would be to try to negotiate with Rhaenyra. Aegon nearly throws him in a dungeon for that, only being stopped when Helena and Alicent explain to him the wisdom of Grandmaster Orwell's strategy. But it's this sort of attitude which shows how emotionally invested Aegon was at becoming king. His instinct was to assert dominance rather than to seek peace, and anyone who diverged from his opinion was immediately to be thrown into the dungeons. The fact that he needed to be talked down from kinslaying shows how personally committed he was to securing his sovereignty once he took the throne. When Rhaenyra refused his peace terms, Aegon only became more committed to his cause, actively commanding and trying to win the war. Whatever reluctance he supposedly had to become king was completely extinguished at this point, and the chroniclers describe him as being quick to anger and slow to forgive. Rhaenyra's defiance only enraged him and made him more eager to push his claim, even going so far as to say, "I offered her an honorable peace, and the whore spat in my face. What happens next is on our own head." This shows that from that point onwards, Aegon took ownership of his own decisions in fighting the war, and that he was an active participant in how matters were decided in the Green camp. He was now far from being a reluctant brother who was trying to act honorably. He was now vindictive, angry, and resolute in his decision to go to war with Rhaenyra. This is actually an aspect of Aegon's character that was sorely missing from the show, as he barely made any strong decisions during Season 2. Instead of an assertive and active member of his small councils, the writers decided to make him a joke. Whereas in the book, he developed a fierce will to rule and fight, on the show he became passive and unserious. It was actually very underwhelming to me, especially as a huge fan of the source material, and especially since I was looking forward to seeing Aegon being adapted on the screen. In both the book and the show, Aegon is crowned by the Green Council, and he becomes King Aegon II. But that's where the similarities end. The show captures his reluctance to be the king very well, because he's a man that's burdened by the crown, loyal to his sister, and very much uninterested in power. But that's where he stays, frozen in this paradigm. He never grows into the fierce, decisive ruler that we read about in Fire and Blood. In my opinion, his role just seems like a watered-down version of the more complex character that he was in the book. And that's just underwhelming. But it's also just my opinion. What do you think about Aegon's character? Was he a reluctant king or an ambitious tyrant? And do you think that the show has done a good job of adapting his character on the show? Let me know down below in the comments section, and if you like this video, click the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thank you so much for watching the video. Peace.